Não é tempo técnico, mas é intervalo aqui no podcast. Já imaginou se seu time tivesse um seguro para não perder nunca? Pois é, isso não existe. Mas com a Zurich Seguros, quem não perde nunca é você. Na Zurich Seguros, os planos se adequam às suas necessidades em qualquer momento da sua vida. Seja seguro de auto, residência, vida e muito mais. Diferente de alguns times, na Zurich Seguros você pode confiar. Para saber mais, acesse zurich.com.br ou consulte seu corretor.
Meu nome é Cairo Santos e eu sou o kicker e único brasileiro jogando na NFL. Cada chute, cada jarda conquistada, cada passo me levou para mais perto dos meus sonhos. Agora, a cada R$200 em compras com seu Visa cadastrado, você tem a chance de ficar mais perto do sonho de assistir ao Super Bowl 59. E usando o seu cartão de débito, você ainda concorre a prêmios diários de até R$1.000. Não importa o tamanho do seu sonho, dê o primeiro passo. Visa, apoiando seus passos aonde você quiser chegar.
Hi, everyone, and welcome on into another edition of Eye on the Enemy, powered by the Eagles Pin Pull Network. I am John Stolnis from BleedingGreenNation.com. You can follow me on X at John Stolnis. And coming up this week, I am going to preview Eagles Jaguars. I'll give you the inside scoop. I'll keep an eye on the enemy this week on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll let you know what the Eagles are up against in a game the Eagles have every right to dominate here on Sunday. We'll tell you what's been going on with Doug Peterson's Jacksonville Jaguars. Unfortunately for Doug, our old friend Doug, job might be on the line here. Not going to get fired mid-season, I don't think, but certainly not looking good there in Jacksonville as the 2-6 Jaguars come into Philadelphia for a matchup against the Eagles, who at 5-2 have won 3 in a row and are playing their best football in quite some time. So we'll go over what the Jaguars have been doing well, the few things they've been doing well, and the many areas in which they've been struggling this year. Also, I'll take a look at the rest of the Week 8 slate and let you know what I'm thinking about some of the games that really have some pertinence to the Eagles and the NFC. Lots to get to here on this edition of Eye on the Enemy. So let's get started here. We'll take a look at what's been going on in Jacksonville. Frankly, this is not a game, guys, that requires a whole lot of detailed analysis. And we'll just kind of paint a broad brush here at the very start here. And I'm going to dip into some of this research that I've done. But the Jaguars are bad, folks. I can, we're going to break it down in a couple different ways. I'll tell you, I'm telling you how they're bad, but this is a bad football team. And they're also banged up coming into this game. The offense has been kind of middle of the pack. The defense, especially the pass defense, has been one of the worst, if not the worst overall in the NFL. If you remember how the Eagles' pass defense was last year, that's pretty much what you're looking at with the Jaguars here as these two teams get ready to play Week 8. Or actually, it's Week 9, the Week 9 slate we're going to be looking at, and this is Week 9. The Eagles have played 7 games. This will be their 8th game, so hence the confusion there. So you've got the Jaguars coming into town, 2-6. They're 2-2 in their last 4 games. So they started off the first quarter of the season, they went 0-4. In their next 4 games, they've split them. They've gone 2-2. They are coming off a loss to the Malik Willis-led Green Bay Packers, a close one, but they lost 30-27 last week. Their wins this year have come against the Indianapolis Colts at home and the New England Patriots at home. They have lost games in Miami. Close one opening week, 20-17. They lost to the Cleveland Browns at home, 18-13. They got blown out by the Bills in Buffalo, 47-10, and then lost a squeaker in Houston to the Texans, 24-20. So, the Jaguars 0-4 on the road so far this year. They're looking for their first road win coming into Philadelphia, and I don't see it happening. Let's start off taking a look at the Jaguars defense against the Eagles offense, and this is a mismatch on paper with regards to the Eagles passing game against the Jaguars pass defense. Let's just go over some of these numbers here. The Jaguars' pass defense has allowed quarterbacks to complete 70.4% of their passes. That ranks 28th in the NFL. There's 32 teams. They are 30th in yards per attempt allowed. The Jaguars have only intercepted 2 passes this year, and they are 31st in first downs allowed through the air. They are 31st in passing plays of more than 20 yards, and they are allowing a passer rating of 111.8, which is also second worst in the NFL. And Jalen Hurts is coming off one of his best outings of his career against a better Cincinnati defense than what Jacksonville has to offer. Jalen Hurts has not turned the ball over 3 straight games, and looking to continue that trend against a team that does not get many turnovers. This could be a monster game for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. There's always some worry about getting these guys the ball enough, sharing the rock, sharing it all, and sometimes it's just not possible. Like last week was a big Devontae Smith game. A.J. Brown was kind of playing more second fiddle. A lot of it depends on how the opposing defenses line up against these different guys, but I think this could be a day where we see the rare mega passing day from Jalen Hurts. Like this could be a 300-plus yard passing day for Hurts, and I think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm making this bold prediction, gang. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith go for over 100 yards receiving each in this game. This is a Swiss cheese pass defense. They really, and even if the Eagles don't have a third wide receiver, really, I mean, Craig Calcaterra, let me say something. Calcaterra looks good, man. He reminds me of Chad Lewis a little bit more athletic. I mean, just the way he's been getting himself open, finding those spots in the zone. He has really good hands, and it seems like Jalen Hurts is starting to develop some trust in him, which is an interesting development because when Dallas Goedert comes back, if you have a second tight end that you have confidence in, maybe now you can start to run some more 2 tight end stuff and you can pass the ball with 2 tight end stuff. It gives Kellen Moore some more things that he can utilize. We're already seeing him come under center a little bit more with Jalen Hurts. We've seen how that play action has really opened up the offense. It's opened up the middle of the field. With Dallas Goedert in there, Dallas is a better blocker than Calcaterra, so you can kind of run or pass in 2 tight end sets. You can use Goedert as a blocker in 2 tight end sets and have Calcaterra running routes and vice versa. Although you're going to most likely run the ball when you've got Goedert in there over to his side. But, I think Kellen Moore, if you have a second tight end, if you've got 2 decent pass catching tight ends and 1 elite pass catching tight end, which I think Dallas Goedert is, you don't really need that third wide receiver quite as much. You'd like to have it, but you've got 2 guys who can use the middle of the field. Maybe you don't go as much 11 personnel. Maybe you're doing some more 12 personnel in that case. So the Calcaterra development has been really interesting, and with Goedert out, you haven't really missed Dallas Goedert all that much. I think Calcaterra has been a very pleasant surprise, and it's good to see Jalen Hurts seemingly developing a little bit of trust in him. So this Jaguars pass defense against this Eagles passing attack, the way this offense is developing, the way Kellen Moore is, I think we're starting to see more and more of the offense come. I know we had been hard on the offense early in the season because it didn't look like anything different was happening, but it really does feel like coming out of the bye, everybody reassessed things, even on defense as well. But we're seeing that this Eagles offense is starting to develop an identity and starting to do some different things. Maybe Kellen Moore is starting to get into kind of that Shane Steichen flow, that vibe that he had when he was calling plays so beautifully in 2021 and 2022. Another big matchup to watch, and again, this is when the Eagles are on offense. Can left tackle Fred Johnson neutralize a talented pass rusher in Josh Hines-Allen? Now, Hines-Allen has gotten off to a little bit of a slower start this year, just 3 sacks on the season, but he's coming off a year in which he had 17 and a half sacks. Trayvon Walker will be on the other side. He's the former number 1 overall pick. He has 6.5 sacks this season, but he's going up against Lane Johnson. Good luck with that, Trayvon. Even as good as you are, and Trayvon Walker usually goes against the right tackles, so it's unlikely that they're going to switch those 2 guys around. But Hines-Allen had 17 and a half sacks last year, man. That's a ton. That is a lot of sacks. And, Fred Johnson did pretty well on Trey Hendrickson last week in Cincinnati. Hendrickson is a top-shelf edge rusher. And I think you could say that Hines-Allen is one of those as well. They don't really give their tackles a whole lot of help with chipping tight ends. We didn't see that last week with Calcaterra or Jack Stoll. I saw it a little bit. We saw Jack Stoll, get onto the field a bit more on that Devontae Smith touchdown. He did a great job. There's that mic'd up moment where Sirianni comes over to tell Devontae Smith, hey, go say thanks to Josh Stoll. He held the defensive end off you for like 9 seconds or whatever it was. So, I don't think Fred Johnson's going to get a lot of help, though. And if he can do the same kind of job against Josh Hines-Allen that he did against Trey Hendrickson, I think that's going to go a long way to keeping Jalen Hurts upright. Hurts is going to get pressured some. I mean, he holds the ball a long time, more than most quarterbacks do. But we're starting to see him get rid of the ball a little bit more quickly. And that's only going to help Fred Johnson. If we can start to see more of these passes, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, or just, he gets the shotgun snap, sets his foot, and the ball's out in under 3 seconds. Fred Johnson doesn't need to worry quite as much. So that's going to be a big key is Jalen Hurts going to be getting the ball out a little bit faster? We saw that last week against Cincinnati. He gets more in rhythm when he does that, and he throws the ball more effectively that way. I think Jalen Hurts is obviously coming into his own here in 2024, starting to look a little bit more like the guy we saw in 2022. This season, I'll get to Hurts' numbers in a minute because I'm going to talk about Trevor Lawrence in just a second, compare these two guys. And last thing on offense that I wanted to take a look at is obviously Saquon Barkley against the Jags run defense. Now, the Jaguars gave up 127 yards and 2 touchdowns to Josh Jacobs last week of the Packers. However, on the season overall, they've done a very good job against opposing running backs, only allowing 3.9 yards per carry this season. But it hasn't mattered a whole lot because the pass defense has been so wobbly. Teams have just decided, okay, we won't run the ball. We'll just throw for 380 yards on you. And that's what teams have been doing, which is why I think this is going to be an A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith day as opposed to a Saquon Barkley day. But we'll see. Saquon is still performing. He's a top 3 running back in the NFL right now, and the Eagles clearly need him, and he can break out against anybody. So this is a great offensive line he's running behind. Fred Johnson, as much as he might have issues with pass blocking, is a great run blocker, and that's what we're seeing. That's what we've been seeing from him over the last couple of weeks, and we'll see if that plays itself out here on Sunday afternoon. All right, looking at the Eagles' defense against the Jaguars' offense, let's just talk about Trevor Lawrence a little bit. This guy was a can't-miss prospect, the can't-miss number 1 overall pick in the draft a few years ago, and just hasn't lived up to the hype. He's a decent quarterback, but has a lot of holes in his game, and there just doesn't seem like there's any more of a ceiling to Trevor Lawrence, even with a guy like Doug Peterson, who historically has done very well developing quarterbacks. Now, you look at some of these numbers, and you're going to say to yourself, it's okay. But a 62.6% completion percentage. He's thrown for 1,835 yards this year. He has an 11-4 touchdown to interception ratio and a 93.9 passer rating, averaging 7.6 yards per attempt. But let's compare those numbers to Jalen Hurts as a passer. Lawrence's completion percentage, 62.6. Hurts is at 69.1. Now, Lawrence has about 300, a little less than 300 more passing yards than Jalen Hurts, but Lawrence has also played 1 more game than the Eagles have played so far. Hurts has an 8-4 touchdown to interception ratio, so much fewer touchdowns in the air for Jalen Hurts, but he's made up for it by running the football into the end zone. And he has a passer rating of 98.6 as opposed to 93.9 for Trevor Lawrence, 8.1 yards per attempt as opposed to 7.6 yards per attempt. So Hurts having a better season than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is, I think, a middle-of-the-pack quarterback right now. And he's going to be without his 2 best weapons on Sunday. Christian Kirk, their star wide receiver, is likely out for the year. And it looks like rookie star Brian Thomas, who was hurt in last week's game against Green Bay, will not play on Sunday afternoon either. So you're looking at Gabriel Davis and Parker Washington as the top 2 receivers for the Jaguars this weekend. Davis has 217 yards receiving this season thus far. Washington, 67 yards total for this season. So I think we're going to see Peterson try to run the ball, but if the Eagles get a lead against this awful defense, this thing could get uglier than you may think. one of the things that could help Trevor Lawrence is that the Eagles are likely to be without Darius Slay on Sunday. So look for Quinyon Mitchell and Isaiah Rodgers to be the starters with Cooper DeJean in the slot. My guess is Keely Ringo is the backup on the outside. This is the game to rest Darius Slay. Like, if you're concerned about Slay, if he's not feeling great, like, this is not this. Even, Isaiah Rodgers, Keely Ringo, Quinyon Mitchell, DeJean, they should be able to handle this Jaguars passing offense. The one thing they are going to have to do is make sure that they cover the tight ends. Evan Ingram and Brandon Strange, they had 95 yards on 9 catches last week. Expect to see a lot of 12 personnel, I think, from the Jaguars this weekend. They just don't have the horses at wide receiver, so I think you're going to see a lot of double tight ends, and I think we're going to see a lot of the Jaguars running game, which is middle of the pack. Tank Bigsby is their top runner this year. He's averaging 5.8 yards per attempt. Pretty good, 493 yards in 8 games. He's just now starting to really become, I think, their primary runner. Travis Etienne had that distinction earlier in the year, but it looks as though Bigsby is starting to surpass him. Etienne has 230 yards on the ground so far this year, but again, 5.8 yards per attempt for Bigsby. And in the Jaguars' 2 wins, he's gone over 100 yards in each game. As a team, the Jaguars are 15th. Right, like almost right in the middle of the pack in terms of running the football. 961 yards rushing, averaging 5 yards a carry. That's 7th most. In terms of total yards, 15th. Yards per carry, 7th most. But like a typical Doug Peterson team, the Jaguars just don't run it all that much. Even though they've played a full 8 games, and there are a number of teams that have only played 7 games, they are 23rd in rushing attempts this season. So one of the things we used to get frustrated about with Doug Peterson from time to time was he just got pass happy. I think we're going to see that this team is in need of, they're going to run the football more early on. I'd be very surprised if they try to put the ball in the air a bunch. And we'll see how the Eagles' run defense, which has been better this year, more aggressive, certainly. But I don't think, and I think the Eagles certainly can load up to stop the run, given the fact that the Jaguars don't have much on the outside. You can play Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond a little bit closer to the line. You can, I think, have them in more of like some run blitzing situations and free some folks up on the outside, leave some one-on-ones out there on the outside against an inexperienced Jaguars receiving core. But I think we're going to see Doug Peterson in a lot of 12 personnel. I think we're going to see them try to run it a bunch, a lot of play action early on. And this Jaguars offense right now with Christian Kirk out and with Brian Thomas out, I don't know how they're really going to move the ball all that effectively, and I don't know how they're going to stop the Eagles in this game. So again, I don't think there's a whole lot to dive into here. This is not a game where you're picking apart like little matchups and saying, well, this could swing the game one way or the other. The Eagles are a supremely more talented team than the Jaguars. They're playing them at home. This should be a relatively easy win for the Eagles, and I'll give you my prediction here coming up in just a couple of minutes. First, let's take a look at the rest of the Week 9 slate. I said Week 8 a moment ago. My be, everyone. It is the Week 9 slate here. This is not a game that affects the NFC, but I've seen a lot of people looking at this game and kind of interestingly. Baltimore Ravens are hosting the Denver Broncos. The Broncos, one of the NFL's surprise teams this year. Ravens are 9.5-point favorites at home. I don't think the Broncos are going to win, but in a league where just about every game is a one-score game, this does not seem like an opponent that the Ravens will blow out to me. So I would, I don't pick the Broncos to win, and I'm not a betting man, so I don't deal with the lines. I think the line is interesting. I picked the Ravens to win that game, but I'm just noting that DraftKings 9.5-point spread is a big one. Another AFC game that could be a lot of fun for even non-fans of this team. You got the Bills hosting the Dolphins. The Bills are 6-point favorites. I do like the Bills to win that game as well. The Washington Commanders and the New York Giants. This is a key NFC East matchup. The Giants hosting the Commanders. The Giants have had an extra long week of rest after playing on Thursday night last week. The Commanders come in high off of that Hail Mary. Ordinarily, I would say that this could potentially be a trap game for the Washington Commanders. As I'm looking at the Commanders' schedule right now. Last week, of course, they played the Bears in that key matchup. Caleb Williams. Next week, the Commanders host the Steelers, and then they are in Philadelphia to play the Eagles. So I don't know if they're looking past this Giants game because the Steelers are a tough matchup. You're going on the road in New York. It's it's not a tough place to play, as the Eagles showed a couple of weeks ago. This is a game the Commanders should win. I'm picking the Commanders to win this game, but this is a funky game. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think it's going to be a field goal game. And it would not at all surprise me if the Giants do pull off the upset here as a trap game for the Commanders, because if we're being honest, the Commanders should have lost last week. They gave the Bears every opportunity to win that game. They let them hang around, and they faltered at the end of the game. Where everybody's feeling good because it was a miracle win, and it's certainly here in the Washington, D.C. area feels like things are turning around for the Commanders. They have a star quarterback. There's no doubt about the fact Jaden Williams is a star in this league and will be for years. He's going to be a problem, folks. But they should have lost that game on Sunday. Now, can they avoid the trap going into New York and taking on a divisional opponent? The Giants are garbage. They are a hot mess, but this feels like a game the Giants could steal. I'm not picking the Giants to win. I know I'm playing both sides here. I'm going to claim credit either way. It's one of the great things about having a solo podcast is I can claim victory either way, and no one can say anything about it. You can't do anything about it except unfollow. So don't do that. But I'm going to take the Commanders to win. But this don't be at all. If you had held a gun to my head and said like you have to pick an upset this week, it would be this game. But I don't have to do that. So it stinks for you. The Cowboys in Atlanta to take on the Falcons. This high-powered Falcons offense led by Kirk Cousins, 3.5-point favorites. We're still in the 1 o'clock window here on Sunday. The Cowboys are faltering. Obviously, they are free-falling. If they lose this game in Atlanta, the season's over for them. I don't think their season is going to be over after this week. I think Dallas is going to go into Atlanta and in a cruel twist of the knife, keep their fans' hopes alive for another week or two longer. I think Dak Prescott and this Cowboys team is still talented enough to go into a place like Atlanta and beat the Falcons. This is my upset pick of the week. I'm picking the Cowboys to go into Atlanta and beat the Falcons, as much as I really don't want to see that at all. All right, looking in the 4 o'clock window again, the Eagles host the Jaguars in the 4:05 window. You've also got the Bears and the Cardinals. What a fun, weird game this is turning out to be. Caleb Williams against Kyler Murray. The Cardinals are playing really well. So go ahead, take the Cardinals in this game. I think the Bears are a good team. The Cardinals are only 1.5-point favorites at home, but I'm taking the Cardinals to win that one. The game of the week for me, the Lions and the Packers. The Lions are 3-point road favorites. It looks like Jordan Love, I think, is going to play in this game. He has been on the practice field this week, and they're saying it looks like that it's realistic he'll play. That would be a big deal for the Packers, but I'm still going to take the Lions to win this game. They are, I think, unquestionably right now the best team in the NFL. And until somebody proves me wrong on that, I'm going to take the Lions to beat the Packers in Green Bay. Rams and Seahawks in a key NFC West matchup. Give me the Seahawks in that one. 1-point home underdogs. Seattle is a 1-point home underdog to the Rams. I know the Rams have gotten a lot of their players back. They're kind of back at full strength, but the Seahawks are playing some pretty darn good football right now. It's a tough place to win. I'm going to take the Seahawks in that game. Sunday night football, you've got the Colts in Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Obviously, a lot going on with the Colts and Anthony Richardson being benched in favor of Joe Flacco. I'm not taking the Colts and Flacco in this one. I'm going to take the Vikings as 5-point favorites. I don't know if it's going to be by that wide of a margin, but I'll take the Vikings to win. And then on Monday Night Football, you've got just one Monday Night Football game. What are we doing? I thought we did 2 or 3 anymore. You've got the Buccaneers going into Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Chiefs are big favorites in this one, 8.5. And I do think the Chiefs will win that game comfortably. So that's kind of the Week 9 slate and what we're looking at here this weekend. As for the Eagles and the Jags, I feel much more confident in this Eagles team now than I did even a couple of weeks ago when the Browns came into town under similar circumstances. And the Eagles did not handle the Browns very well. I mean, they won the game, but it was tight. It was close. I don't get the feeling that in Doug Peterson's return that this game will be tight or close. I think the Eagles are going to handle the Jaguars just fine in this one. The Jaguars are just a little bit too banged up. They do have a better quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is better than Deshaun Watson. That's not saying a whole lot. I just don't think the Jaguars have the pieces with all of the injuries and the pass defense as battered as it is. And the Eagles are playing with a lot of confidence right now. They're back home. They've just won 2 road games really impressively. I think the Eagles are going to come back and they're going to give the fans in Lincoln Financial Field something they haven't seen in a while, a comfortable, fun-filled win that they really control from start to finish. All right, everybody, let me give you the score. I'll say Eagles 34, Jaguars 17. That's going to do it, everybody, for this edition of Eye on the Enemy. You want to make sure that you're checking out everything we got going on over at the Eagles Pin Pull Network. Lots of great podcasts for you to check out, so make sure that you do check them all out. And you can read my stuff over at bleedinggreennation.com. I've got an article up there this week about the trade deadline, so hope you'll check that out. Again, bleedinggreennation.com to read my stuff there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Eye on the Enemy.